Hello YouTube, RJ Carter here, and for this one I kind of want to talk about addiction. It's overcoming the modern day element of this ease of content consuming, of escaping reality. So, and everybody has their substance, everybody has their hit of dopamine that they get, whether it's going to church, whether it's going to a bar, getting drunk, watching a movie, watching TV shows, pornography, YouTube videos, and what have you. And so, at what scale does it start to ruin life? Because from my perspective, a lot of life for me would have been greatly benefited if I hadn't indulged in, music music and digitalized women. If those two things were not in my existence, what we would have accomplished would be tremendous. But kind of taken into a book is a book called Un-F Yourself, with the F word, the curse word in there, and I forgot the author, but what it basically talks about is that you are winning at life right now, because everything that you've gained, that you've experienced, that you've gotten, you got to use to your advantage. You got to use to your uplifting and upbringing, because what else can you do with that? All the addictions, all the turmoil, all the pain, all the transgressions of others, all the trials. You gotta bunch it up and use that as your advantage. Use that as your scope of experience in your life, and just kind of every conversation you've had with your friends, with your family, even negative experiences. Kind of use that. And a quote that I recently saw was one of those quotes was basically saying that everything is a butterfly effect. Now, to say that everything is a butterfly effect, it's a little skewed, because I do believe that there's maybe like four. There's another quote too. It basically states that there's 4 or 5 days that are basically life is really consists of 4 or 5 days, and the rest of your life is kind of just filler. Like there's the major moments of life that kind of trickle down and develop the other filler of life. Because a lot of people don't remember 2016 Tuesday or March something 2016, right? But they do remember that one day that changed everything, that other day that changed everything, and it essentially does consist of like the 4 or 5 days. But kind of going back to the original point, which is the concept of the butterfly effect. And now you can say that every small thing is a butterfly effect and it changes everything, but how I see it, there are the major things that have happened and manifested themselves to change life. And so with that knowledge, how do you benefit yourself? How do you grow from yourself? So, and how I like to implement it is, if I'm alone in my room, instead of going on the negative, I like to tell myself just the small things that, just make that effect, right? I mean, if you're focused on, for example, journaling, sometimes you don't even have to journal. Like the fact that you have a journal in your room and you have a pen, that is good. That is good. And because it makes it easier to simply take out, especially, it becomes a lot easier to journal when you have the book and you have the pen right next to your bedside. Because as soon as you wake up, it's right there. There's no effort to really get it. And you start writing it down. So that's, a butterfly effect in itself. But to get a topic for this video, I'm in an element, to kind of get on a personal stand, I'm in an element where holding an occupation for me has not been easy. Like it's been a lot of confusion. It's been a lot of politics, a lot of unnecessariness that comes with holding an occupation. And in this day and age, everybody needs an occupation. Whether you're a freelancer, whether you're making money online, you need a set system of income. And so from that, it's hard to hold down a day occupation. And one of the things that I've learned is that don't think you're irreplaceable. It's very easy for you to get fired, kind of thing. And so from that, you kind of, you got to discipline yourself. You got to, structure it out. You got to get out the, manifestation. You got to be, wake up early, get there early, leave a little bit late, follow directions and stuff like that. But even still, when you are in this kind of lifestyle and an element and a realm, and you got people transgressing on you, whether you believe it or not, the proof is in the pudding kind of thing. It's hard to hold down a day occupation. So from that, society is almost like forcing me as an individual to become an entrepreneur, to make money passively, to make, a living, not needing to go to a certain location and doing a certain activity and interacting with certain people. But in either case, at the end of it all, it's all about the self-improvement of the mind, of the body, of the spirit. Exercising it out, mapping it out, getting out new hobbies and interests and perspectives, what have you. But to kind of get to the existential form, because recently I was at a funeral, and when you go to a funeral, you kind of realize things about life and things about death that sometimes, out of all the quotes, out of all the motivations, out of all the music, out of all the feelingness of the specialness of life, it might just be that people die and nothing happens. You live, you try to enjoy as much of it as possible, you try to have the least amount of pain as possible, you structure out a success to whatever version that means for you. But in a grand scheme, it could just boil down to, we live this life and then we don't exist anymore, which is an interesting perspective, and it's way easier to kind of, get the Christian perspective of, there is a heaven in the afterlife, there is a hell in the, after this existence, and you kind of can see how a lot of cultures would structure their religions for the afterlife, because once this life is death, and it's kind of I think the answer is, because eventually society does have that question, and more or less they are essentially answered with the Christian perspective of, if you're a good person, and you should be a good person, nobody wants to kill another person, nobody wants to steal, nobody, because society is set up that way to where, even if you take out religion, you still have in every country the laws of the land, which is, don't kill another human being, don't steal, and if you do these things, then there are transgressions to that, right? And so from that, there's an underlining truth, a naked truth that comes from the the elements of just appreciating what you have in this reality. To kind of bring it back, there's an underlying truth of how existence works. And so Christianity, they almost figured out, if you take away like the concept of like stoning your slave, and these weird stories about like what was it, in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, like how the grandpa, like he was drunk, and like if you take away those stories, and you have like the core element of be a good person, and even if you take away like the Jesus Christ aspect of it, the concept of being a good person, no sex before marriage, save your money, work good, help out your fellow neighbor, do not commit any crimes, and the afterlife, you will be rewarded for it. You'll have an eternal existence in heaven, and sometimes that's what most people simply need. They just simply need that piece of knowledge that will take them from their Monday that will take them throughout their working week, throughout their working life and existence. Because when you come to it, at the end of it all, human being needs to work, and they need to work, and whatever philosophy that helps them work, whatever technique, a meditation, a book, whatever it is, it's just a means of getting to work. And after work, you one day don't exist and you die, and whatever happens. But for the life that you live right now, it would seem that just all this information and all these techniques and religions and situations of life, they kind of conclude themselves for you to work, and after you're done working, you can you can have a silent existence of eternal sleep, because before you're born and when you sleep, it's kind of the same thing. So it might be the same thing after that. And who knows if you died in your sleep, right? But we're getting too existential on these topics here. Just kind of getting back to the flow of creating daily content, daily material, daily understandings. But as far as my situations, we always, I think at the end of it all, it comes down to money. It comes down to getting a sense of resources, and using your energy, the best amount of energy as possible to believe and achieve a level of wealth and understanding and abundance, for you to exist in this reality. Because Jay-Z said it best, 9 to 5, but 9 to 5 is how you survive. But I'm not trying to survive. I'm trying to live it to the limit and love it a lot. And when you grow up in high school, you watch these videos of unless you're going into a good school, getting a good degree, you're gonna work these menial jobs, these hard, intense labor jobs where you're essentially in a warehouse. You're wearing steel boots. You're driving a forklift, and you don't want to be working that job, especially at least ideally speaking, people of this existence do not want to live in that job and live in that context. And kind of relating back, there was a video of a construction worker who his teacher said he wasn't going to amount to anything, and he was kind of showing off like, I make this amount of money. And construction workers, they do make a lot of money, but ideally speaking, nobody would want to wear that vest and need to dig and be digging ditches and working on roads. And but if you're down on your luck and you need an occupation, you get whatever occupation you can. But ideally speaking, people, the intellectuals want to be in the office. They want to be in the suits. They want to move up the ranks. They want to have and make large sums of money. But ideally, more than anything else, people want to be millionaires and billionaires and not be obliged to a certain occupation, but have kind of a freelance lifestyle where you have, your own business and several streams of income and several, projects to work on and what have you. But in either case, coming back to, the topic of the video, it relates to, all getting, money to work, work and money, and then death. And it would seem like death is the eternal savior of us all. But not to get too much into, that kind of religion. But until next time, it's RJ Carter here. Peace.